the importance of it is the septic system obviously is not just about flushing and washing your hands and the water just goes away, It's actually a treatment process. Well, everything's great except you can't flush in the house. You have to go down the street to the McDonald's to go to the bathroom. The septic system will take up a lot more room, and there's a lot more that goes into getting a proper septic system than most people think.
Yeah.
Even then, I tell people, I joke, I was like, my first 6 months, I just felt like a total idiot that I was doing it because there's just so much to it. And it was probably 2 years before I felt like, okay, I think I got this, So it's not a quick process, and there's more to it than you think. Kinda, yeah, but there's a scientific process. The wheels are turning. It just looks like I'm playing with the mud. The kids always think that's funny. They're like, wow, you get to play in the mud all day.
Yep. Welcome back to another REI-NWA podcast. My name is Coley Bailey. I'm a principal broker at Lone Rock Realty, and this is episode number 49, getting close to that elusive 50. And we've got with us Piper Satterfield with BBB Septic, and we're going to be talking about septic and getting all of the design right, selecting the right lot, all that good stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the nitty gritty of the septic systems and everything, which are becoming increasingly important in our area, let's learn a little bit about you. Where are you from? How'd you get into doing what you're doing now?
Well, I'm originally from Pine Bluff. That's where I was born and raised. I went to school at college in Jonesboro and got a degree in environmental biology. And from there, had no clue what I wanted to do in life. Just took the first job that I could in a laboratory in Memphis. And that led me into wastewater because they actually did soil testing for farmers. They did chicken nugget testing. They did wastewater testing for industries. And it kind of led from there. Then I went to work for a consulting firm. And then I worked for the Department of Environmental Quality doing water quality testing.
In Arkansas?
In Arkansas. Mainly water quality testing and wastewater testing. And from there, I had nothing holding me when I was living in Little Rock. And my parents were retiring and moving up to Northwest Arkansas because my mom was born and raised here. And so I found a job with the health department, and it was just an environmental health specialist doing septic system inspections. Had no clue about septic systems. I had a wastewater license, had been in wastewater for a few years at that point, but really didn't know anything about septic. But took the job, and that's led me here. So in 2019, John Juvenile, who's the co-owner with BBB Septic.
And by the way, if you haven't seen his episode, go check him out.
And he lured me away from the health department, and I needed a new challenge, and he's provided it. Yeah. So here I am.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and so it's one of those things. If somebody says, "Hey, we want to build a spec house. We want to, do an investment. We really want to, build some new houses and see what we can do." Yeah. Okay, great. When they're buying a lot in town, it's probably going to connect to a sewer system. We hope.
You would always think so.
You would always think so.
It's not always the case.
It's not always the case. You do have to double check this. But definitely because the land prices have gotten so high in the towns, we're seeing a lot of people moving further and further out into jurisdictions where you have to have septic. And it's one of those things that people don't, especially when they're getting into building, they don't realize what they're getting into and how important it really is.
That's true. So septic systems are usually the last thing anyone thinks about until there's a problem. And then all of a sudden, if you can't flush in your house, then that becomes the most important problem in the home. And then you start to learn more about septic than you'd ever wanted to know. One thing I want to make clear, septic systems work fantastic. You'll hear us, people in the industry, laugh and tell horror stories, but just know that they do work really well. They're a good, nice, economical solution to your wastewater treatment that we all produce in our homes.
Right.
So keep that in mind. And when I get to talking, if I start talking about scary things, don't let me scare you, because they're not. They're just more cautionary tales rather than a statement about septic systems and about how they work. So because they work really well.
Well, let's talk about what. First of all, you need to get a permit in order to do one from the health department. Yes.
Regardless of your land size, that's a common misconception.
Right. Yeah. Well, give us a little bit about why that is, what that process looks like, and how you play into that.
Yeah. So I'm the septic system designer for the company, which means I'm kind of the first step in that building process for septic systems. You have to have a permit, one, just because it's the law, or it's state regulations. It doesn't matter if you are in city limits. It doesn't matter if you're out on 100 acres in the middle of your farm in the rural county. It doesn't matter. You have to have a septic system permit if you're going to have a home or a business or something that does not connect to sewer. The importance of it is the septic system obviously is not just about flushing and washing your hands and the water just goes away. It's actually a treatment process. It actually cleans up the water before the water is released back into the environment and joins the water cycle and ends up in the rivers and lakes and streams that we all enjoy here with the kayaking, fishing.
Yeah.
Beaver Lake is our main water source for, I'm not sure how, like over 25% of Arkansans, I believe. So it's really important to protect those waterways, if you have a well, it's really important to protect that well water. It's important for your family's health there. You don't want to be walking around your yard and running into sewage or having your dogs. I've seen this. Dogs go outside, lick the puddle of poo, and come back into the house. That's not good for your health. It's not good for your neighbor's health. It's not good for the environment's health. So that's mainly what septic systems are for, and why it's so important to get a permit from the health department and from a licensed, qualified provider like us to provide that for you, because it's really important to do the soil testing. It's important to do the design correctly, and it's important to install it correctly, and it's important to maintain it, which we can talk about all that later. But it's also, it's as big an investment or more than maybe your roof sometimes.
Yeah.
So you talk about protecting property values of a house that you're about to purchase, or you want to sell, or you want to just keep. Try to sell a house that doesn't have a working septic system. If you can't flush, if you tell your buyer, well, everything's great except you can't flush in the house, you have to go down the street to the McDonald's to go to the bathroom. Good luck selling the house, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to work very well.
No.
So every piece of land is part of a watershed.
Yes.
When rain hits it, it goes somewhere.
It goes somewhere. It ends up in a Beaver Lake. It ends up at the Illinois River. It ends up somewhere.
Yeah. And so when we flush, it goes somewhere.
It goes somewhere.
Right.
It doesn't just disappear into the ground and goes poof. It actually moves. Water moves.
So how does it actually get purified? So it comes from the house into a holding tank?
It's a septic tank. So it's kind of a 3-part system, every septic system. You have the septic tank, which the whole purpose of that is to collect the water and to catch solids. So anything that floats will float up to the top. Anything that sinks will sink down to the bottom. And then you should have a kind of more clear layer in the middle. That clear layer is what gets distributed out into a distribution device, which distributes it through into absorption lines. You may also hear those called field lines, lateral lines, septic lines, leach lines. Yeah, all the same thing, just different names. And those leach lines actually take the water and disperse it into the soil. And the soil actually, it's a very specific design. We have it designed so that the soil in the top 24 inches of soils, where all the oxygen lives, all these good bacteria and all these good microorganisms, and we're actually harnessing nature to clean up the wastewater that you produce, and it filters and percolates down through the soil and eventually gets into the groundwater and is back into the water cycle. You also get evaporation from just evaporating into the air, which is part of the treatment process. The grass and trees and bushes and things that are nearby, they benefit from that nutrient-rich water, and they help take up some of that water. And so you're kind of recycling nutrients, you're recycling water, and you're also purifying it before it returns to the natural environment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. So let's talk about some of the mistakes people make, or some of the red flags to look out for when you're looking at a lot to build on, or a piece of property.
Like a vacant piece of property.
Yeah, a vacant piece of property that you're going to build on.
Oh, there's so many. Because after you do this for so many years, you can walk out to a lot of times and go like, oh no, this may not go very well. And I hate to scare people by saying certain things like if I walk out to a lot and I see nothing but a glade of cedar trees, that's usually a red flag to me, because that usually, and not always, but it usually means either high clay content, which is bad for the leach lines, or they don't have much dirt at all. And the dirt's what does the treatment and the absorption. If you don't have enough dirt, then you may not be able to get a regular septic system. So if you see also big rock outcroppings, bluffs that take up half the lot, they're really cool. They'd be very picturesque to build there, but that also means maybe not so much dirt for the septic.
Right. You really need the topsoil because you really need those microorganisms
exactly
to be able to work. Yeah.
Yep. Now there are alternative options that can fix some of these issues, but not always. So it's really, really important. I don't care how much land that you are purchasing. I would not purchase that land without doing a soil test first.
Right.
They're quick and easy. Most of the time we use field techniques in a program it's called soil morphology. University of Arkansas actually developed the program for us. It's pretty unique for the rest of the United States, and it's actually proven to work really well. We're actually, instead of the old style perk testing where we used to just take a little post hole digger and throw some water in a hole and watch it drain, turns out everything perks in July and August when it's really dry. So instead, we use the soil morphology technique, which is where we look for different features in the soil that tell us how water moves and reacts in that soil throughout the year, not just in that one point in time. So it's become a lot more accurate, and we can typically give you results just right then, same day. Occasionally, we'll have to, if there's question about the amount of clay content, we'll take samples and turn them into the University of Arkansas. They have a soil lab here there are some private labs as well, and they will provide us a clear picture of clay content. But typically, we can just provide it there on the spot. And it's really, really important to have that done before you close on the land. You can make it part of your contract.
You should.
And you should.
Yeah.
I absolutely. I would not buy anything without doing that. Red flags. If the seller doesn't want you to get a soil test, that might be a red flag.
Right. Yeah.
If it looks like there's been a lot of dirt work done on all over the property, say you have just a 1 acre lot and more than half of it looks like they had bulldozed and built a pad or something like that, that's actually changing the natural properties of the soil that's available. So that could cause you to not be able to get a septic permit and build later on.
Yeah, that's one of those things. People might get heavy equipment out and they start moving dirt around and stuff, but they're not thinking about, I have to have undisturbed topsoil.
Yes.
And I have to have enough of it
Yes.
for the size of the property that we're trying to build.
Yeah, and it's not unusual for the lateral field, absorption field, however you want to call it, to be the same size as your house or bigger. And plus, you have to have a backup area for you'll hear it called alternate area or secondary area, and that's just an area of undisturbed soil that you also reserve for future repairs. Hopefully, it's 30, 40 years from now, but if something happens, you have to have it, and that's by law, you have to have that backup area, except in certain situations, but for the most part, you have to have. The septic system will take up a lot more room, and there's a lot more that goes into getting a proper septic system than most people think.
Yeah. In terms of just process, if someone's got a lot, they want to buy it, they think they want to build on it, they should get their soil morphology test.
You get that from a designated representative, which is an antiquated term for septic system designer.
Okay.
Yep.
And so then do you have to have the full septic design before they buy or just before permit? Right?
Just before you get the permit. So typically most people, we do what's called a contingency test, or some people call it a perk test, no permit. And you just put it in the contract. Okay, you have to prove to me that this soil will perk or the soil will support a septic system before we close. So we'll go out, dig a couple of pits, provide a written report that says, yes, it will support a septic system. And if you want a 3-bedroom house, it's going to take up about this much area. That's how I structure my reports.
Okay. But it's not a full design.
It's not a full design. That's separate. So if you want to do a full design, you first soil test. And then based on those soil test results, I have all the measurements and features and things that I look for tell me how many gallons per square foot per day that soil will take and treat. So that combined with the number of bedrooms, or if you're building an office, your number of employees, it depends on what your usage is or is intended. Then I come up with a number that says, okay, you need this many total feet of absorption line, and then how we lay it out just depends on different features, like topography of the land and how much line you need and that type of thing. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there, and what we do is once we figure out, okay, we need this much lateral line, you'll tell me, okay, I'm kind of wanting the house here, and it's going to be about this big, and oh yes, I'm going to have a pool on the back here, and oh well, in the future I might build a shop over here. You want to tell me all those things, even if you don't end up doing everything immediately. That way I can go ahead and plan for your septic system now so that you can build in the future. If you want to do your pool and things later, you can do that. But anyway, we figure out what all your plans are, what you're wanting to do, and we start there with your ideal. And then we have to actually take measurements and mark, okay, this is where the septic tank will go. And then, then we have a certain amount of fall I have to figure out, downhill from there. This is where the distribution box will go. This is where line 1, 2, and 3 will go. And then we take measurements to property lines, and there's just an application packet that we fill out for the health department based on that. It includes a drawing.
Right.
So if you'll hear us say septic permit or septic design, same thing, because the permit actually includes the design.
Okay.
And so we submit that to the health department, and the health department, and this is something most people don't realize, health department will actually come out to your property and redo the soil test. So you're getting a second set of professional eyes on the soil. And if we're all in agreement that, yes, what I have designed and proposed will work for you and your intentions, then the health department will sign, it's called a permit for construction. And it's good for 1 year. And so you're supposed to get it installed before 1 year. If you can't, your project takes a little longer, you didn't get to build like when you started, we can always renew the permit. Yeah, but that's the minimum process. And it takes a lot longer than you would think. So that's something you need to think of pretty close to the beginning when you're starting the process. Yeah.
What kind of time budget should people be thinking?
At least 2 months, probably.
Really?
Most designers are probably at least a month out at any point in time. Benton and Washington counties, we actually produce more permits than anywhere else in the state. And, there's like everywhere else, there's a shortage of labor. There's a shortage of designers because you have to, it's a process to be able to become a designer.
Yeah. And
there's not that many.
You've got a science background, you have a background in the Department of Health. And I mean, there's a lot that...
So if you wanted to just come in and be an apprentice, it's a 3-year apprenticeship.
Right.
Unless you have certain degrees, and then you still have to be able to go through a little bit of schooling to learn it. And then even then I tell people, I joke, like my first 6 months, I just felt like a total idiot that I was doing it because there's just so much to it. And it was probably 2 years before I felt like, okay, I think I got this, know? So it's not a quick process, and there's more to it than you think. When I'm doing my soil morphology test, it looks like I'm playing in the mud. It looks like I'm making worms with dirt and stuff. And people are like, I'm paying you for this. I'm paying you to just play in the mud. And I'm like, well, kind of, yeah, but there's a scientific process. The wheels are turning. I just, it just looks like I'm playing with the mud. But kids always think that's funny. They're like, wow, you get to play in the mud all day.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us about this. And we've got a Builder Circle meeting coming up on October 1st, 2024. And Piper's going to be our speaker for that program. And you can come and ask all kinds of questions because this will affect anything that you build that is not on a high-pressure sewer line. And so it's definitely super, super important. It's a critical piece of the infrastructure. You don't have the house if you don't have this right.
Exactly.
Well, once again, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so come out to the Builders Circle at Rendezvous Junction in Rogers at 5:30 on October 1st, 2024. Look forward to seeing you there. It'll be $20 at the door if you're not an REI-NWA member, and if you are, $0 as usual. So make sure to go to rei-nwa.com and get signed up if you haven't already. Well, thanks for watching this one. We'll catch you on the next one.